Hello and welcome to Pretty Spooky Presents Friday Night Feast and Fright. The goal is every first Friday we match our meal to our monsters, but this month I bit off more than I could chew since this is one bloody fantastic movie and one of my all-time favorites. Each month I plan a pretty spooky dinner and a movie to enjoy at home in the Sunken Compass, my home tiki bar. I work out all of the details beforehand and share my low carb on the high seas recipes in the description because they're to die for. This week's Feast and Fright brings us to the murder capital of the world, Santa Carla, where if all the corpses were to stand up all at once, there'd be one hell of a population problem. Tonight we'll venture off the boardwalk and into the cavernous depths to sample David and the boys' favorites, cave noodles and coconut lime rice, because 3 million Chinese people can't be wrong, and of course, Santa Carla Sangria. Unfortunately for Grandpa, rules are meant to be broken, and for dessert, we will raid his second shelf for root beers, peanut butter Bopperz, and double thick Oreo cookies. Since Grandpa will be out of the house for just a bit while he brings some of his handiwork to the Widow Johnson, we better hurry and get started on the desserts right away. The Lost Boys is like spooky movie comfort food. You've had it 100 times, know exactly what to expect, and will always come back for more. However, this dish of campy vampy goodness didn't start out as the delectable morsel it became. This horror comedy went through such a transformation that the original authors Janice Fisher and James Jeremias no longer recognized their creation. Originally conceived as an amalgamation of Interview with a Vampire meets Peter Pan meets The Goonies, it was quite a smorgasbord, to say the least. Written with the director of The Goonies in mind, a miraculous chain of events caused him to pass on the film. The script was handed over to the St. Elmo's Fire director Joel Schumacher and screenwriter Jeffrey Bone. The vampires were given the St. Elmo's treatment, turning them into attractive young adults with charisma and magnetism. Since vampires have always been associated with sex appeal, Schumacher clearly understood that mysterious young adult vampires would have a better chance at the box office. Besides, if given the choice, almost everyone would opt to spend an eternity as the most virile version of themselves at their prime, instead of being stuck forever as a chubby-faced, prepubescent vampire child. Schumacher wisely balanced the darkness of the sultry vampires with the lightness and humor of the humans to keep us always hungry for more. Whew! We finished up just in time. Grandpa will never know, so let's borrow the car without asking and head on over to the cliffs by the boardwalk. I hear there's an awesome concert going on. Then we'll hang out with David and the boys for some cave noodles, coconut lime rice, and we'll meet back here for Santa Carla Sangria. It's a small world in Hollywood. Schumacher surrounded himself with a tight-knit team who brought his vampiric vision to life. Costume designer Susan Becker, who worked with Schumacher on St. Elmo's Fire, and Flatliners kept the rock and roll Jim Morrison vibe running throughout the wardrobes. Production designer Bo Welch is also known for his work on Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice. Schumacher trusted the advice of makeup artist V. Neal, who advised he hire foam prosthetic specialist Greg Canham, who had Michael Jackson's Thriller video on his resume. Looking at both Thriller and The Lost Boys, it's easy to see that Canham had the skill and restraint to create the angular, dramatic monsters while still leaving much of the actors' faces visible and able to emote. Steve Laporte was also brought on board, who shared overlapping experiences on Beetlejuice with V. Neal. It was Schumacher who conceptualized the Lost Boys Cave as the lobby of a luxurious grand hotel that collapsed into the San Andreas Fault during the earthquakes of 1906. It was adorned by found ephemera collected by Star and the boys, including a giant image of Jim Morrison, which seems to hint that the boys have been around for longer than what their youthful good looks would indicate. It was the genius of screenwriter Jeffrey Boehm to transform Noodles and rice into worms and maggots for the hazing scene, where David humiliates Michael with the intent on injuring his ego enough that he'll be easily manipulated to accept the dare to drink from the ancient ceremonial bottle. Clearly, the Lost Boys film is responsible for a whole new era of vampire lore. No longer reserved for only caped older gentlemen with strong accents, the Lost Boys usher in cooler, more youthful rebels with fangs. I wonder if Greg Canham's addition of glitter to help the cameras better pick up the stage blood in the shadowy sets might have accidentally inspired the anemic sparkle of the Twilight vampire. But thanks to the endless buffet of surf punks, David and the boys will never grow pale and sparkly. For Santa Carla Sangria, we start with chilled Pinot Noir. It's a perfectly dark varietal and also known to contain the least sugars or carbohydrates of the red wines. Next, we add 3 ounces blackberry brandy, 3 ounces dry orange curacao, 3 ounces pomegranate liqueur, 6 ounces lemon juice, 3 ounces lime juice. Add the sangria to your most exquisite ceremonial serving bottle, and serve over ice with a garnish of lemon and skewered blackberries. Now that the feast is prepared, I better get ready for our guests. Schumacher, who had always had a flair for fashion, was discovered by Woody Allen when he was a window dresser in New York City. Allen recognized Schumacher's gift and hired him as a costume designer, which eventually evolved into directing. Schumacher's talent for designing a look, setting trends, and creating atmosphere is evident in the visually captivating movie, The Lost Boys. After seeing Kiefer Sutherland in the films At Close Range and Stand By Me, Sutherland was Schumacher's first choice to play David. Schumacher planned for Sutherland to have long, flowing white locks to help emphasize his otherworldly eternalness. Sutherland, who thought the long, one-length hair made him look more like a wrestler, had the makeup department cut the front to look more like the popular rock star Billy Idol. Schumacher eventually got over the young actor's blunder, and Sutherland now says that he might have inadvertently popularized the mullet. Schumacher admits he chose the rest of the vampires for their looks to fulfill the vision he had for the film. Schumacher's trusted costume designer, Susan Becker, was said to have provided each of the 4 Lost Boys with a dollar amount and sent them off to Melrose Avenue to find their costumes, and then worked with what they brought back to create the renegade English gypsy aesthetic Schumacher was after. Jason Patric was surely chosen to play Michael partly due to his resemblance to Jim Morrison. Patrick reluctantly took the role with a few stipulations. He was allowed to work with Schumacher to help further hone the script. Plus, he was told, at first, that he wouldn't need to wear vampire makeup. Oops. And was further enticed to accept the role when he convinced Schumacher to cast Jamie Gertz as Star. Patrick had already worked with Gertz and admittedly had a crush on her. And even though Schumacher had envisioned Star as a sprightly blonde, his mind was easily changed after seeing the chemistry between Gertz and Patrick. So there you have it. Pretty Spooky presents Friday Night Feast and Fright featuring The Lost Boys. I'm not sure if it's okay for the guests to see the food before dinner, or am I thinking about the groom not seeing the bride before the wedding? I always get those confused. Either way, thanks for hanging around. I hope you enjoyed your time here at the Sunken Compass. If you try the recipes, let me know what you thought and how it went in the comments. I'd love to know how these recipes and methods compare to others you've tried, and if you prefer yours to be low carb on the high seas now too. And be sure to check back every first Friday for more Friday Night Feast and Fright. We're dying to have you for dinner. I loved being your haunted hostess. You were a wonderful guest and you're welcome back always. Farewell until next time. Cheers. But But there's one thing about living in Santa Carla that I never could stomach. All the damn vampires.